Algiers is the beating heart of African trade this week as the Intra-African Trade Fair, the fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, unfolds under the theme turning Africa's potential into real opportunities. The fair brings together leaders, investors, entrepreneurs, across the continent, from across the continent and beyond. Deals worth billions of dollars are on the table. But today, the spotlight has shifted to the Diaspora, a vital bridge between Africa and the rest of the world. Joining us today is the head of the Algerian diaspora in Canada, Mr. Ghani Qulli, to discuss the role of Algerians abroad in building connections, creating opportunities, and contributing to Africa's economic future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mariam Zian, for having me.
Thank you for your time. For years, the diaspora was mostly seen as a source of remittances. Today, Algerians abroad are increasingly positioning themselves as investors, entrepreneurs, and active partners in Africa's growth. In Canada, for example, home to more than 1.3 million people of African descent, and where new initiatives are being launched to deepen engagement with Africa, how do you see the diaspora, the community abroad, driving these opportunities and making them impactful on the ground?
First, thank you for having me with you. I would add an S to the diaspora. I do believe that there is multiple diasporas, dependent which country they come from, dependent on when they arrived to, for example, to Canada, and also dependent on the reason why they immigrated. So I would maybe separate them on three separate profiles. Maybe the first profile is, you remember, we weren't born, but we recall that in our history, in the 60s and the 70s, the Algerian government sent the most interesting or most performers students at that time to immigrate, or at least to study in the US, in Canada, in Europe, etc. So those constitute today the first generation of our diaspora, mainly in Canada. The second would be in 2000, around this period, quantitatively more important. However, qualitatively also, it's composed by entrepreneurs, students that became professional, already experienced professionals that joined Canada to contribute to its economy, and maybe lastly, students. There is a wave of students that move from Algeria, or in general from the continent to Canada. So just maybe as a sort of context, there is like multiple type of diaspora. So when we speak about diaspora, which one we are referring to? Mainly, they all have, or almost they all have one, I would say, a pattern. They kept connection with the country, the Algeria, as where they were born, or their roots. They kept also this desire to contribute. And when I analyze and observe personally, as an observer of our diaspora, I realize that there is kind of maybe the first category is when they move it to Canada in specific context, which is emotionally very, very desperate in a sense. So those, I would be frank to say that they don't want to hear that much about contribution or get back to the country.
So they don't really contribute.
Hopefully they are a minority, but they do exist. So let's say the truth. The second category, I would say those who lost the trust. They tried several times during the last 20, 30 years, and no concrete result. So one of my role, more specifically the CDCA that I represent today, is to try to rebuild the bridge and the trust link between this diaspora and the Algeria, or maybe at large the continent. And the third one is proactive change makers. I would say most of them entrepreneurs. They still believe that no matter what are the barriers, they would overcome them, and they will try to make concrete stuff. I consider myself, of course,
from this category.
From this category, but hopefully we need to shift those who lost the trust to be proactive and change makers.
Whose job it is to actually do this? And
I would say it's for me, it's a common responsibility. Of course, we could say and claim that the government, the Algerian government, need to do this and this and this.
Yes.
I still believe that it's the case, and we have clear message, a totally positive and different message. If I compare simply 10 years ago, the message that at that time was totally different. It was, if it wasn't negative, it wasn't that attractive. Today,
people didn't
in the
believe
person
in it,
of
but it
His
changed.
Excellency President Tebboune, we have a clear message. Members of our community abroad are Algerians, not more, not less than the whole community. So this message, this positive message, this, I would say even this call to bring our energy, our creativity, our maybe investment also, and to contribute to the rebuild of the country is a clear message. And I wouldn't disagree with that. In the same time, we as a diaspora members need also to be accountable, because I was trained by this country, I was educated here, and Canada never paid a penny for my
For your
education, for
education.
example. So I owe something to my country, and I'm not the law. I'm not the only one. So I think it's a mutual responsibility. And the good news with the diaspora days like today is the question is not anymore who is responsible for what. I mean, we solved this according to my experience. Now, what we could do as first action in order to achieve some milestones. Because we need...
So we're no longer talking about the obstacles that are hindering investors, for example, from coming back home and investing, or such
I don't
things?
think so. First of all, barriers exist everywhere. They are in different format, they are in different contexts, but barriers exist everywhere. Second, I think that being Algerians and being members of the Algerian diaspora, we have what we call the system D, the D system. So we have this agility and we have this creativity to overcome barriers. And finally, if you are an entrepreneur and you cannot overcome barriers
Then
over the
you're
world, you are not
An entrepreneur.
specifically an entrepreneur. So I wouldn't say that, first, factually, we don't have the same barriers than when I left the country 15 years ago.
Things are getting better.
From digital connection, from internet bandwidth, from digital services, from the business climate, the doing business in Algeria. Is it perfect? No. But tell me which country is perfect. However, I think we need to separate three categories of actions. For me, we need to celebrate if we are, I would say, achieving sort of, I mean, we were late in some areas in terms of laws, in terms of infrastructures. We need to celebrate the fact that we are reducing the gap. However, we don't need to over-celebrate it, because it's just reducing the gap. We are reaching out zero level. And I'm very frank when I have conversation and the chance to discuss with ministers or officials. I say the truth. Thanks for doing this. I need to say that it's just reducing the gap, because we were supposed to have this 10, 15, 20 years ago. However, we need to say thank you. We need to celebrate it. The second category is what I could call net positive. So it's not something related to the gap that we are reducing. It's literally a new stuff that we are adding. If we compare to our benchmark in terms of the region or worldwide, we are literally adding a value that gives entrepreneurs, investors, an added value or an attractive incentive to come to Algeria. We absolutely need to focus on those. And I would say every accountable person in this country need to have this, according to my point of view actually, need to have this buckets. What am I reducing as gap? What am I creating as net value? And the third one is to be purpose-driven, is to dream, is to think from a forecasting perspective and say, hey, not only I need to manage the day-to-day, not only I need to reduce the barriers, I need to be strategic. I need to think about the next 10, 15 years. I hope there is more and there will be more and more links between diaspora members and officials and government members to think
all
about
the
this
stakeholders,
not only to manage the day-to-day. Because if all of us are sticking to the day-to-day, what would be the near future? And I think we will lose a strategic advantage in this time.
Today's theme was about borderless collaboration. You spoke about the fact that there are maybe not many borders or let's say not many constraints as before, as 20 years before. So what
less before, yeah.
Yeah, less than before. So what does it mean to you in practice, especially for Algerians spread across North America, Europe and beyond?
So concretely, it means that the business climate or the way we do business in the West is more and more, I would say it in the other way. I mean, the way we do business here in Algeria is gaining agility and attractiveness more and more near to what we have in the West. So when we have an investor that feels like, oh, we could do business, we might do business differently, we might need to adapt and to contextualize our way of doing business, but in terms of rules, we need to celebrate one thing that we have nowadays is the stability of the laws, the stability of the regulation. I mean, we suffered for many years, if not decades, of someone wake up a morning and change the law, and more than that, decide that even what we agreed years ago would be like now destroyed and we need to rebuild another vision. So we have now more stable, not perfect, but more stable. So this gives outlook, this gives perspective to investors and entrepreneurs.
The climate is becoming more helpful.
Much more helpful.
Many African professionals abroad are considering returning to the continent, not just Algerians. We're of course talking about the whole continent. What do you think are the main opportunities for this reverse migration, if we can call it reverse migration?
Yeah, and I would pick up this last sentence. If we could, do we need absolutely to come back physically to contribute? I don't think so. I think, and to tell you a personal story, for many years living in Canada, I felt guilty, like many other members of the diaspora. You know what made me much more comfortable? In 2016, I realized that I could train and contribute to my country and to the region, and train and mentor hundreds, if not thousands of people, just by coming specifically in some period or even distantly. So this made me realize that contribute to its country or its continent has nothing with being in person and physically here only. Of course, it's better, and of course you could do more, but I would say that I need to challenge this idea of reverse immigration. I would prefer to think about reverse contribution. We get resources from this country, education is one of it. It's now time to contribute back. I need to focus more on this versus whether the member of the diaspora is getting back physically or not
in the country. One last thing, the African Union's Agenda 2063 recognizes the diaspora as the 6th region. How do you interpret this recognition, and what responsibilities do you think come with it?
There is a symbol that comes with it. If we consider, for example, we have nearly 7 million Algerians around the world. So when people say we have, I think, is it now 48 million that we have in Algeria as population size?
It's more than 40.
Okay.
Not 48.
So we need, every time we say the number of the size of the population, we need to add the 7 million of Algerians. So it's the same thing if we we apply this principle for the whole continent. Let's say we have, I think, 1.4 billion people in the continent. If we have to add the nearly 350 million. African abroad. So this makes literally 15% of our population overseas. So I like to think about it from symbolism. However, concretely, if the African Union consider it as a sixth region, it needs to have the same rights and the same obligation that the other regions. And it needs also to have the same, I would say, infrastructure in order to contribute the best it can. So I would take it from my perspective as a responsibility, or I would say as a core responsibility. So to the African Union and to the continent to make it possible in order to, again, as we spoke about the barriers, try to identify them, try to overcome them, and try to solve them so that the diaspora could come easily. However, it's not its sole responsibility. I think the diaspora has the power, has the influence, has the resources in some cases to build its part of the bridge so that the flow would be much more easier.
And would be mutual. Maybe on a more personal note, as a last thing, what does it mean to you, someone representing the Algerian diaspora in Canada today, to take part in Diaspora Day here at the IATF 2025? Today is the second day, and it was dedicated to the Diaspora Day.
I think I'm very honored. That's a privilege for a personal privilege for sure. I would say that I see it from historical perspective. I don't want to look at this day as the first initiative. I wish we could look at it from a historical perspective. I mean, the first diaspora were slaves centuries ago. More recently, our diasporas was forced to leave the countries and live elsewhere. And thanks to those first initial cohort of diaspora members, we recovered our sovereignty. So for me, I am just a humble member of this, it's a continuity of the tradition of what generation of diaspora, how it contributed to the continent. And for me, so it's a continuity. The context, the place where we are, the technology we use, the speed of gathering hundreds and thousands of people during few days and weeks is unprecedented. I mean, to imagine this in the 60s or maybe in 50s, first, it would be in Western capital, maybe London or Paris or somewhere else. Second, it takes years to gather people, and it wasn't even safe to gather as African or African descendant diaspora members. So, alhamdulillah, like we say, I feel honored, and I feel also a responsibility. So it's not only to visit the country, it's not only to leave Algiers. I am asking myself, what should I do? Not only what can I do, but what should I do to shift this energy to concrete actions.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, dear viewers, for following this interview. We'll be conducting others here at the IATF. Thanks for watching again, and bye-bye.